category to put her in, but she's fantastic. So she'll be with me next week, and we're going to be turning the show over mostly to her. But for now, to this week, and she does have a new song out on iTunes, so if you put go on iTunes and search Cass Clayton, and you'll see the newest stuff coming out. And anyway, the other thing I was going to do is we're just going to talk today about a lot of things. So the first thing we're going to do, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on this show, is talking about the recent decision to rescind the rights of women, to take us back to the Dark Ages with the Roe v. Wade decision to overturn it. So, first of all, there are a couple of things I want to talk about this, and I want to read something that a friend of mine wrote. I'm not going to say her last name because I don't have permission to read this and use her name. I'm sure she doesn't care I'm reading it, but I don't want to use her name because she's not giving me permission to use it. So anyway, this came not from me, but from someone I know who I went to high school with, who's probably one of the smartest women that I've ever met. The SCOTUS opinion striking down Roe v. Wade cites common law and uses citations from as early as the 1600s. It looks at whether the right being discussed is deeply rooted in history or in tradition. The crux of the Justice Alito's legal rationale is that the 14th Amendment protections of freedom are not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution and must be limited to those rights that were understood to exist deep in the country's history, especially around 1868, when that amendment was ratified. This is an example of originalism in contrast to the more liberal interpretation method that views the Constitution as a living document whose meaning can evolve with society. The opinion also cites Sir Edward Coke, a 17th century treatise and the Institutes of Law of England in 50 to 51 in 1644. There are numerous citations from the 17 and 1800s, all before women were involved in government, before women had any rights to vote. In fact, some before African Americans had a right to vote, and some while they were still slaves. And so that we're going back 150 years on this document, and 50 years in terms of taking away our rights. So I really believe that, and thank you for this, I think it kind of sets a precedent for what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing is this is a witch hunt. It's plain and simple, particularly states that will let you prosecute people that help people and let people who are unrelated to those people turn them in. It's no different than the witch hunts in the 1600s, which is why we're going back to that time, I'm pretty sure. Let's talk about the religious right, or as I like to refer to them as the religious wrong, or the unreligious right. In fact, I'm sick of a small fraction of the population, which is about 15% of the public, as part of the religious right, and 30% of the Republican Party, trying to control between 85 and 70% of the population with their beliefs and their interpretations of the Bible, and everyone else, and other form of Christianity other than theirs, and all other religions, and people's right to not believe. We have a freedom of religion, and we have freedom from religion in this country. And if you'd like to support freedom from religion, there is a foundation called the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and you can donate to that. And they're going to be fighting all of these theocracy, the people trying to turn us into a theocracy from a democracy. And that's what's going on. Make no mistake, folks. They are trying to put religious beliefs into law, which is a theocracy. And so if you are against that, you need to really think about how you can stop it. It's bad. One thing you can do is stop going to those churches that preach that, and find one that doesn't. We're trying to turn our democracy into theocracy, and I say shame on you for the politicians that are pandering to people and allowing this to happen, and shame on you for the people who are voting them in, and shame on you who want to do this. This completely ignores the religious beliefs, for example, this abortion decision of Jews, who clearly stated in rabbinical law and in the Torah that a person isn't alive after their last breath, and they're not alive before they take their first one. It's a part of the mother, and the mother's right to
given a minute dose of
so
LSD,
this is, whoops, what's that? Okay.
the spider's web took on an
But
unfamiliar
you got my
minimal
Facebook page up
structure.
there. I can hear it. Anyway, it clearly violates that. And Jesus, as we know, was a Jew. He came during a time to reform Jewish law and reform and work within the Jewish community. They didn't accept it, or all of it, and so therefore Christianity became a thing. But he was here during the time of that law. He was a rabbi. He preached on the laws that were so unfair, and he didn't say one word about this, by the way. Not one word. It's all fabricated later by people who want to control women. And much of the Bible wants to control women. And I'm really sick of people pointing to a book that some people believe in and some don't, and claiming that everything in it's absolutely written for today and now. And I want to say the first misogynistic thing starts in the very first part of the Bible when it talks about Adam and Eve. because from that point on, Eve has been considered someone of lesser mind, feeble-minded, and unable to make her own decisions, and wicked, and trapping men. And that's where the beginnings of that started, and that BS that you read there. So let's just start with that, and let's keep moving on. And we're going to get to some topics, and Henry's going to join in after he gets everything up and running. Here's one thing I think, before we start. I think that we do have some things we can do, and there's something the president can do. He can issue a presidential pardon for any woman who gets an abortion, any doctor who performs one, and anyone who helps them get one. And that can be an open-ended pardon to anybody, or it can be individual, and they can have them already written, and you have your lawyer just send it in, and you get pardoned, and that takes care of it for now. So I'm going to encourage Joe Biden to issue pardons to anybody who's persecuted, and I mean persecuted on this witch hunt. And the other thing that I'm sick and tired of is subjugating to men. And that's not going to happen in my lifetime. It's not going to happen with me. I don't believe the Bible teaches that, and I don't believe that any Christian religion that has any worth its salt would preach that women have to be subjugated to men. The far-right Christian movement embraces that, and they also have strong roots in racism. So we're going to talk about this. This is the unchristian right, is what I'm referring to. Now I'm going to say something right here. I have friends that are Christian, and they're very dear friends, and they're good people. So it doesn't apply to every Christian, just like everything doesn't apply to every Democrat or every Republican. But it does apply to a great number of them, and enough of them that they're wrecking our democracy. So I'm going to move forward with this right Christian movement that embraces roots in racism. You don't believe me? Okay, the KKK, what did they burn in people's yards? It was a cross. What do they carry now in their marches? They carry a cross. The Proud Boys, they use the cross as a symbol, as do most extremist hate groups. If these groups are not endorsed by the Christian right, then why have they not disassociated with them? Why have they not gone out on a public campaign calling them out and saying they're bad and they don't represent Christians? Well, they've kept their mouths shut, and complicity is the same as being a part of it. And why do they march alongside with these groups and vote for the same people that these groups for? You are the company you keep. You're the company you keep. You keep company with these vile people, then you are a vile person. I contend with the Republicans that have been taken over by the far-right agendas are truly the Antichrist. And this is going to make a whole lot of people hate me, and I don't care, first of all. First and foremost, I don't give a shit if you hate me or not. Okay, now, here's the next thing. I believe that they are the Antichrist, and they're the Antichrist that we fear that was to come. And it is the Republican Party of today, not the former GOP, the good people, but what we're seeing today. It's a takeover of the Antichrist in that movement. And let me explain why. Jesus showed by his words and actions that we should love our neighbors, help strangers in a strange land, care for the poor, the widow, the homelessness, the fatherless child. And let me tell you, it takes more than a donation and a couple cans of food at your church pantry, more than making an extra gift at your church collection to help the poor. It means living, walking, and breathing that. Jesus spoke of the meaning of the law and the spirit of the law and the actions we take. If you claim to be Christian, but you are anti-social security to support widows, children, and elderly, anti-education to lift people out of poverty, anti-safe and affordable housing for the poor, anti-food justice, anti-child care, food stamps, for poor children, anti-internet for all, anti-welfare for single moms, anti-universal health care, anti-immigration, legal or otherwise, not saying open borders, but humane ways of enforcing our laws. And if you are supporting hate-mongering and fear-mongering and peddling information about poor people, people of color, people trying to immigrate to this country from disadvantaged countries, who by definition, they are not as blessed as you, if you're not helping them and you're villainizing them, then you are anti. You are anti-safety in schools by refusal to look at antiquated gun laws. You are anti-schools by wanting to destroy public education. Based on the teachings of Jesus, you are the Antichrist. Make no mistake, they are coming after birth control, same-sex marriage, LGBTQ rights, and more. Make no mistake, that's next on the agenda. And if you don't like that, you know what you need to do. You need to vote these people out. Everyone needs to vote. If you voted and you were an independent and you didn't vote for somebody, or you voted for the Green Party or a third party, which means your vote is wasted, you are the reason we're in this mess right now, because we need everyone to vote against this to get our rights back and to restore our nation to a nation of caring and loving instead of a nation filled with hate and divisiveness. What do they support? Well, they support the BS proposition that prosperity gospel, that's what they support, which fails to recognize that Jesus was not talking about gluttony and greed. He was talking about blessing you so you could bless others. Okay? He wasn't talking about handing out one sandwich and feeling good about yourself, but then voting down any programs to help feed people. He wasn't talking about that. You are like Pilate. You're washing your hands to the plight of the person. What else do you support? Violence, insurrection of the Capitol. You support that. I can tell that by everybody who still believes in the in Christ almost as a second coming of Jesus. The self-notion that you need, the self-notion that you don't need to help, the selfish notion that you do not need to help or protect the poor, and that's shown by anti-vaxxing and anti-vaccines. You don't care about the elderly; they're going to die. Who cares? They die anyway. Loosening of gun laws. You're loosening the laws instead of tightening them, making them better. And they are the party in elimination of public education. They are the party. If any party, if anything came to mind and someone said, who represents the Antichrist and hate in the United States of America, it is the Republican Party and those that are enabling this type of behavior. Now, Democrats, what did they vote for? They voted for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, national parks, clean water, education, health care, the right for women to vote, the right for African Americans to vote, and other things, and they were put in by Democrats. Republicans voted against every one of those things, every single one, okay? Now, let's go on to Mythbusters. What do you think, Henry?
Oh, Lord.
That's a
that was a mouthful.
I know. I started the show out that way, but I do have a thought that I don't know if I mentioned it, but I do believe that the president has the right to pardon anyone who performs an abortion or anyone who receives it or gets, and so I think presidential pardons could solve this problem. Just make a universal pardon, and that's the end of story until he's out of office. So that's and gives us some time to recover.
But that other guy, whatever his name was in office, and he's the one who appointed all these Supreme Court people.
Well, and they did it illegally.
How come we don't go in there and just do away with the Supreme Court? What do we need it for?
Well, we need it, but here's the thing.
For what?
Well, it should be unpolitical, but it's not. It's politically biased, and many of those were illegally placed.
Yes.
So they took away Obama's pick, they put in their own pick, and then they put somebody in while voting was already started. And so that's that's an illegal, or at least it's not ethical that they did that. So that's a Jesus value, no ethical standing. That's pretty good, right? And the other thing with the Supreme Court is that the two of them lied when they were being confirmed. They just plain out lied about Roe v. Wade. They lied. And if you lie to get confirmed, what kind of religious conviction do you have if you lie?
Jesus.
I mean, as far as I know, lying was on the top 10. It was like, don't do this, don't do this. Lying was right there. So anyway, I have no respect for them. I have no respect for the Republicans. I have no respect for the people who vote for them. In terms of their political views, I don't respect them. As a human being, I care about them, and I may love some of them, but I don't respect their values or their opinions because they're invalidated to me by the way that they treat others. I don't know. What do you think, Henry?
It's true. You go over a lot of things that you've been saying, and it's everybody supposedly has their opinion, but did you listen to the Catholicism, the Catholic Church come out and say things?
Oh, they're horrible.
What'd you think of that?
I think it's bad. I mean, they're anti-Pope now. They love the Pope. The Pope's God's vicar on earth. He can't make a mistake, except if he's against what you think, American Christians. Then he's a shithead. It's like, give me a break. The Pope's a good man. I believe in the Pope, and I hope he changes that church because that church is just downright corrupt.
All the way.
All the way. From boinking boys to, sleeping with girls and, and all this other bullshit they preach from the pulpit. They're a bad institution.
I think they all are.
I think they pretty much all are.
I think religion has just gone down the tube.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, we're going to start our own religion. What'd you say the name?
Two jobs for Jesus. That's my religion.
Yeah, 2 jobs for Jesus. Just send your money in.
Send it in. Send it.
We're not taking anything less than $10,000 because it's so hard.
I'll take little donations from poor people. I'll take $10 at a time. Just like Joel Osteen and those other charlatans. But
Charlatans.
That's what they are. And but anyway,
I like that.
I want to go on and talk about some Mythbusters. And what that is the Republicans for years have been feeding us information, and even some Democrats believe it, and it is wrong. So I'm going to talk about some of the Mythbusters.
You better get that
Let's talk
fixed.
about the states with the highest murder rates. For years and years, you hear Republicans saying, it's the Democrats, and they have in their cities, and they have this, and they have that. Well, let's just talk about that and pull out some statistics to back up what we're going to say. Among the 50 states, murder rates were often well above national average in many Republican-controlled states and cities. And I'm going to give you some examples. Jacksonville, Florida, with 176 homicides, and the murder rate is 19.77%. It's more than 3 times the rate of New York City. Did you know that?
Jeez.
Yeah, and which has a 5.94% murder rate, and has a Republican mayor. Tulsa has a 19.64 murder rate. Oklahoma City has 11.16, have Republican mayors in a Republican state, and have murder rates that dwarf Los Angeles at 6.74%. So, I mean, are you listening to this? You've been complaining about the rates of crime and things like that, and your states that you live in, that your red state voters have worse murder crime, have more meth addictions, have more crime that per person than the large cities that you're complaining about. That too stems from racial issues, because they think it's all a bunch of black people live in the city and brown people on welfare, which is so far from the truth, it's not even funny. Lexington, Kentucky's Republican mayor saw record homicides in 20 and 21 with a murder rate of 10.61%, nearly twice that of New York City. Twice that in Lexington, Kentucky. Bakersfield and Fresno in California, which are Republican-held areas of California, has an 11.91 and 14.09% respectively. Each Republican mayors have murder rates far higher than San Francisco and Los Angeles in that same state. We found that murder rates on average were 40% higher in the 25 Donald Trump won states in the last presidential election compared to those that were voted for Joe Biden. 40% higher in the states that supported Trump. But what did he run on? Law and order, that these cities are bad, we're good crime-fearing people, the cities are bad, you know, and again, that's another lie that's been perpetuated. In addition, murder rates in many of the red states dwarf those in blue states like New York, California, and Massachusetts. And finally, many of the states with murder rates like Mississippi, Kentucky, Alabama, and South Carolina are the ones that few would describe as urban. They're not urban, they're rural. Only 2 of America's top 100 cities in population are located in high murder rate states. Okay? Only 2. So the cities and the cities and the high population areas that the rural people are so much against, and not a single one of them is in the top 10 states registered in the top 15 for population density. Not a single one, okay, for murders based on that. Not a single one. So there goes that. Top 10 murder rates in the United States. Let's talk about the states that are red and blue that are in the top 10. Mississippi, number 1. Louisiana, Kentucky, Alabama, Missouri, South Carolina all have murder rates higher than New Mexico and Georgia, which are blue, and then Arkansas and Tennessee. So in the top 10, only 2 were blue. So there goes that myth that it's, you know, it's the blue states that are committing murders and crime waves and all that stuff. The top 10 murder rate increases. What states increase the most? Wyoming, South Dakota, red. Wisconsin is blue. Nebraska, red. Minnesota's blue. Kentucky, red. Delaware, blue. Washington, blue. West Virginia, and Kansas. Those are the states. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 10 had the highest murder rate increases in the red states. So there goes that myth. Busted. What do you think, Henry?
That's wild.
It's busted.
It's like you wonder what is wrong with these people.
I don't know what's wrong with them, but I do know that
There's a lot of them that
Well,
follow this
they've
lead.
been abused, and they've been no, they have. They're like an abused wife. They've been sent information. They only get it from one source. They're brainwashed from preachers. They're brainwashed from their husbands that that they have to believe what they do and do what they do and all of that stuff. And truly, I don't think they really felt that someone would lie to them as much as this party has, because many of them are older Republicans, people that are used to the Republican Party, a conservative party, but not this vile, I don't know what you call it, the Antichrist of the Republican Party. They're not used to that, and so they didn't expect it. And I think, so I do give them a pass in terms of that, but guys, guess what? The information's out there, and if you choose not to believe it, or if you want to believe that everything's a lie and it's not, then it's on you. The blood's on you, the problems are on you, and your ignorance is on you. So anyway, now, what do you think about job growth?
Job growth, they talk about, I don't know, everybody's looking for employees, but nobody's working. How is everybody making it?
Well, I think that there's a lot of difference in what's happened, and I think, first of all, they sent, there was and I'm not saying I'm pro-illegal immigration, I am not, but they sent all the Mexicans home, folks, and they were doing those jobs like at McDonald's, and, it's like we're missing workforce because of this, and that's part of it. The second thing is, there's no health care and child care and things like that are so expensive. It doesn't make sense hardly for a mom to go to work if she's got 2 kids in daycare unless she's making about $75,000 a year. Otherwise,
and even
she's
then, it's not
spending all of her money sending the kids to daycare, and they're getting they're just running in circles. So you've got women that have left the workforce, and that's impacted it tremendously. It's not that people don't want to work; it's that people don't want to work for something for a non-livable wage.
and just go home and, you know, you're working and then you're having to put out $1,800 to $2,000 for a little tiny 800 square foot apartment.
Yeah, and not only that, it's the health care, the medicine. And if you make over a certain amount of money, so I think it's $17,000, and no one can live on that, not in Colorado at least. If you make $17,000 a year, you lose every benefit you have.
That's
So
right.
it's not worth going to work if you're going to lose your housing and you're going to lose your health care and you're going to lose, it's not worth it. And it's not a problem with we're giving them too much, it's a problem we're not paying them enough.
That's right.
You know,
It's all upended. I don't know for some reason why they drove gas way in the heck up there. There was no reason for this. It's not solving nothing.
well, we don't control that. It's controlled by the oil companies and the oil market, the world market. But we're going to get into that
It
in a minute.
still doesn't solve anything.
No, it doesn't, but they don't care, they're making their money. So they've made historic profits of the first quarter of 2021, into
So
the
raising the
67 billion,
prices do what?
$67 billion, I believe, was the profit in the first quarter of
So
this
how
year.
is everybody supposed to go to work if you're having to pay for all this gas?
Yeah.
To pay for your
Right.
house, to pay for your license, to
It's
pay
all,
for your
it's
food.
all connected.
So, Jesus.
So let's talk about job growth, and then we're going to talk about gross national product and what states take the most from welfare and what cities do and what don't. Because
Yeah.
that's a misconception, too, that's been promoted by the Republican Antichrist Party.
How do you justify any kind of job growth if nobody's working or
Well-
can work?
Well, they've hired everybody they can. We need more people is what we need if we're going to do it. So let's look at job growth let's go back to Bush, H.W. Bush, okay? The first Bush, which I voted for, and I will tell you that.
The first Bush, yeah, I liked my first Bush. It was.
Shut up. We're not going there, Henry.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. That's the way you said it. Let's go to the first Bush. Okay.
Henry.
Yes, I'm
All right.
there, I'm there.
Herbert
I'm with
Walker
you.
Bush, I voted for him. And I thought he was a pretty decent president, if you want to know the truth. He created 60,000 jobs during his time in office. Okay, then let's go to Clinton, who I did not like, by the way, the first time, and I did like him the second time. So I didn't vote for him the first time, and I did for the second. Clinton, 221,000 jobs created.
Jesus.
Now let's go back to Bush W., the son. 32,000 jobs.
The other Bush.
The other Bush. 32,000 jobs were created under Bush W.
Oh,
And then let's go to Obama. 120,000 jobs were created under Obama. Let's go to Trump. He lost 60,000 jobs.
who is that?
Trump lost 60,000 jobs.
Good God.
And Biden has created 542,000 jobs.
Jeez.
Okay? Now, if we look at this, even if you take...
Biden's done them all in.
Yeah. Even if you take out the months that were related to COVID for Trump, because if you say that's not unfair, he has a lower job creation by Biden than 3%, than 3 times. He's still 3 times lower.
He wasn't creating
And it was in
jobs.
the
He
same
wasn't-
period of
He
time.
wasn't doing nothing.
He has less than every Democratic president since Bush, actually every Democratic president in the modern history, he's created less jobs. And in fact, Clinton, Obama, and Biden exceed all the job growth of Bush and Trump. Even if you combine all their job growths together, they don't equal what Clinton did, they don't equal what Obama did, and they don't equal what Biden did.
None.
Even if you
Because-
stack all 3 of those presidencies and compare it to just one, it doesn't match up.
But
Okay?
they didn't do nothing.
No, they didn't. The economy is suffering, and part of it's due to COVID. Well, you know what? Who was the president for COVID? It was Trump.
That's
Biden
right.
came in at the end of it. It wasn't Biden, it was Trump. And who ignored the science, ignored the masking, ignored everything, and created masking and vaccines as a political, right? Political? Who did
God.
that? That was Trump. And what happened? The economy had to close down because of it. And then Biden stepped in, and he's faced with these issues and trying to bring it back. You know, and so everyone's like, oh, it's the economy, it's this, it's that. Well, your president, Trump, is the one who wrecked it. You know, and we're trying to fix it, which we've done every
Why do they
single
still
time.
like him?
Well, I'm going to go into that in a minute.
Please.
But I think they still like him because they're fed a bunch of lies, and they are not able to research on their own or don't want to find the truth. 2, once you've been duped like that and abused like that, it's very hard to find the reality to step away and go, wait a minute, because we don't want to say to ourselves, I've been duped, because that has a bad stigma that you're stupid. But you're not stupid. You're not stupid. You were
Yeah, they
lied-
are if they like
No,
him.
they're not. They were lied to, they were scammed, and they were fed, they were brainwashed, basically. And they still, some of them still are, and they will probably always be, and they'll think that I'm being a jerk for saying it, but you are. And, you know, it doesn't change it, you still are. You know, gas prices. The president does not control gas prices. So you know what amazes me? is when Bush was president, gas was over $5 a gallon, and all the Republicans did was scream how the president is not responsible for the gas prices. Remember that? That's all they did. They screamed it, it's not responsible, not responsible, not responsible. Now Biden's in, it's responsible, they're responsible, they're responsible. Hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy and lies that are making people hate not only the Republicans, but the far right who's pushing this agenda.
That's right, all the way.
Yeah, and that's what's ruining the churches in this country, because church attendance is down, people don't want to be a part of religion anymore, and I don't blame them. I don't want to be a part of it either, because you people suck.
I know a few people who like the Trump administration, and they're friends of ours, and we know them, and then what do you think of that? I mean, you want to tell
It's
me?
hard, because I have some friends too,
That's what I'm saying,
and
it's like-
those friends I have a deep love for, so
But it's
I
like-
just kind of turn away from that with them.
How do you?
But it's very
really-
difficult.
Do they, and they're, a lot of them are bright, a lot of them
They're
are.
not stupid, they're not, but they're wrong. They're plain out wrong.
Have you ever gone into any kind of discussion?
We used to, but I walked away from it because I have
just
to,
didn't
sometimes
work.
you have to choose between you love someone and they're your friend or your family member and being right. And I choose love over that. So I have walked away from that, but I will not step away from my bully pulpit that I have given to me by you, Henry, and back up when I know it's right, and I want to talk to the 130-some thousand people that tune in every week and tell them that they need to listen, they need to be aware, we need to fight and fight like hell, or we're going to lose this country to a theocracy and I can't say it, authoritarianism. Let's look at the Republican GDP. You want to do that?
Let's do it.
Let's do that, okay? Let's just do that. 8 out of the 10 states most dependent on federal government were Republican voting states, with an average red state receiving $1.35 back on every dollar they contributed to the government. So who's supporting this country? It's the blue states, it's not the red states. 9 states sent more to the federal government than they received back, and those were Democrat voting states and had a high per capita GDP. And many of the red states received the most help. So this idea that it's the cities and all these welfare moms and all these people getting all the money is bullshit, okay? GDP by state growth over 1 year. These are the top states that grew. Hawaii, Nevada, California, Tennessee, that's red, Florida, that's red, Washington, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Texas is red, Georgia's red, North Carolina's red, Colorado, Oregon, Minnesota, and New York. Those are all the states that grew, and of those, all but 3 are blue states.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. Now we're going to go back into having conversations and looking at if anybody's commenting and getting that on there. But one more thing I wanted to comment on. We have been constantly fed that we're so great, or we're the human rights country, we're this, we're that. Well, women's rights have been rescinded by 50 years, and it doesn't just affect the right for abortion. It affects the fact that if you're raped, you have to carry the rapist's baby, and in many states the penalty for rape is less than if you have an abortion.
Wow.
That's wrong. The rapist gets less time than you will if you get an abortion from some slime bucket that raped you and
What do these Supreme Court people think?
I don't know. I don't know.
They're not thinking. are
They're
they?
not. No. Well, they are, but they're putting their religious views in instead of what the country wants, which is
What are they going to do next? Women can't vote?
Well,
Blacks can't
I
vote?
think the next thing will be gay marriage, and they'll go after birth control, and those will be the next 2 things that they go after. And
Aren't they trying to overpopulate things and make women carry steel?
well, they're trying to set us back.
Stillbirths and.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Like if you have a baby that dies in your womb, you have to have it out.
That's what I'm
You know,
saying.
and if that's and you go in and do that, in some states that's an abortion. If you have an IUD and you get pregnant, you will die, and your baby will die. It's a fact.
That's right.
But you can't abort that fetus. Now you've got to die, and the baby's got to die.
I know.
That's insane. That's not justice.
Can't anybody overthrow this?
Oh yeah, it can be done. It can be done by law. So we have to vote in blue senators and blue congressmen.
Not wait. This is go in there and get rid of that.
No, you can't.
Why?
The only way to do it, because that's the law of the land now, the only way to do it is to vote in people that will codify. And I'm going to tell you, I blame the Democrats for this as much as the Republicans. We had the Senate, we had the House, and we had the presidency under the first term of Obama, and they should have codified Roe v. Wade then. It
Why
should have been
didn't they?
then. I don't know. I don't know if they were afraid of the ramifications or what, but they should have done it then. We knew this was coming. It should have been done then. Also, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as much as I love her, she was 100 million years old and sick, and when Obama had control of everything, she should have resigned so he could have appointed that person in her place.
Right.
So I'm sorry, that's my bitch with that. Okay. What do you think, Henry?
I like that.
You gave me a chocolate. We're gonna
Yeah,
stop.
well,
for a
that's
minute.
got you going. Watch,
Yeah,
watch how she eats this chocolate. It's very seductive.
It's not either. I just shove it
Watch
in.
it.
It's like a pig.
She shoves it in real quick and it goes, mmm.
I was eating one earlier.
Yeah, she can't get away from it. Look at her.
That's good.
Oh.
That's really good, Henry.
Isn't that sexy the way Rhonda does it? We're changing the theme a little bit. Just watch Rhonda.
It doesn't matter.
She looks so good coming from Mexico.
I get a good tan.
She's adorable, looking beautiful. And
Thank you.
now she's just
But
eating
no,
this.
now see, I'm
Hi,
over
welcome
that
to
age.
the TF show, and we're brought to you by our sponsor, Hot Chocolate Cups.
But-
This is the way she eats them.
But Henry, here's the deal.
Yeah, try to shut me off.
I'm
I'm
old.
gonna keep going. That's an excuse.
I'm old. I'm so old. All I've got's powdered milk. So this
Oh, yeah,
does-
sure. And you're gonna tell me you were the waitress at the Last Supper.
Yeah, I was the waitress at the Last Supper. So this doesn't apply to me, but it applies to my children and my grandchildren, and my future grandchildren if I get any. It applies to many people who have daughters and wives and mothers and children that they love and grandchildren. And the reality is that if they get pregnant and they have a problem, they are going to die if they live in some of these states. They are flat out going to die.
Well, can't the
And this
states
is wrong.
overturn a lot of this stuff? And
They're not. They're voting in really strict rules.
Why?
The states are
What
putting
they-
in.
What is it that
Well,
they're
I
after?
believe it's men who want to control women. I think the men, poor little white males, are so
With little peepees.
Oh my, with little tiny peepees, are so upset that women might have their job. That a woman actually got to go to college and now she's the boss instead of me. It's my right. And oh, that black guy, he got the job because he's not smart. Bullshit. They don't hire people that are stupid just because they're of a certain color. And you know, and oh my God, that's my right to be the boss. That's my right to rule my castle. That's my right. And
That's a rule all
I
these
think
women
that
in
these
South
little
America.
white men are threatened.
You ever see little
Threatened.
tiny white men this big, right?
Yeah. And I think they're threatened. I really do. And I think that's part of it. I really-
Kavanaugh and all
And they
these-
want to go back. They want to go back to where white men ruled the roost. And it isn't going to happen because you know what? A Supreme Court can make a law, but it takes people to live by it. And we're not going to live by it.
And people can drag them out. You know,
You can
go
drag
grab
'em
them
out.
all, pull them all out, and hang, draw, and quarter them all.
And it's still going to happen, folks.
Where did that happen?
They're still going to do it. People are still
How
gonna
could
do
they
it.
stop the people from going in
Oh,
there?
that's,
dragging
I'm
them
not
out?
gonna, no, that's not, I'm not even gonna say that on the radio, that is not acceptable. It wasn't acceptable for the January 6th people, it's not acceptable for anybody else to resort to
Now,
violence.
would you say this? You know that Trump, he appointed all these, these
Mhm.
judges in there. Wouldn't you say he's telling them to do this? Why would they pick Roe versus Wade right away?
Well, that's been going on for a
Yeah,
long
but why
time.
did they do that? To stir up the pot, to get the attention off of
Well, I think they
January
released
6th.
it, I think they released it purposely during this time to
Yes.
take the attention off of him, there's no
Yeah.
question about it. Let me tell you what it costs to become a president in the United States. So we say we're the greatest country in the world, and we're a democracy. It costs $2 billion to run and win a presidential election in the United States. That's not fair. We've been at war 250 of the 275 years. We've been in some type of a war or conflict. 250, only 25 years of real peace in the United States since its inception. No other country is like that. We spend over $8 billion on arms, more than most of the world combined. Most of the world's
That's
armed
right.
budget combined. And in fact, it's China's military expense is 1/3 that of ours. We have 25% of the world's prisoners. All the prisoners in the world, 25% of them live in the United States because we're the most violent country in the world. Can't afford universal health care. We can do that, but we can spend 800 billion on that, but we can't afford universal health care. We don't provide health care for our people, and we can't afford debt forgiveness for our kids who are really suffering under the structure of massive, massive school loans and debt. And the reason that they don't want to support that is they don't want underprivileged people, blacks and browns and women, to get an education. They want to keep it with the rich white boys. And these people that are, these Appalachian Mountain people that vote Republican are, come on, you're voting against yourself. You're voting against yourself. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I don't want my tax dollars. Well, guess what? We've already proven that your tax dollars aren't doing this. It's ours because we're supporting you. There's not enough money left over in your state to support anybody's loan forgiveness because we're paying for your fucking welfare. Pardon me for saying that.
I like this.
Right.
Go on, go
Okay.
on.
Well, it's true.
It is true. Go on.
You know,
Let's
I'm
not
paying.
stop.
I don't bitch that my tax dollars are going to support you. You know, I don't bitch about that. I don't bitch about it. I don't care. I think it's my job to help support my neighbors and my friends and my family, whether they're in my state or other states. But the reality is, all you do is complain about my tax dollars are supporting those people, and you don't even pay taxes because you're on welfare, half of you. And then you're getting my money to support you because your state doesn't have enough money.
That's right.
It's like, that's ridiculous. You know that 17 million kids go to bed every night in the United States hungry. 17 million children go to bed nightly in the United States that are hungry.
Now that you say that, let me just interject this. I seen this meme from an Indian reservation, and the mom was yelling at the kids, "You kids go to bed now!" "Sure we will, if you buy us one."
That's about right. I mean, and don't even talk that, I mean, that
Yeah.
ways, don't
Yeah.
even talk about when you take out the native reservations
That's
and the
right.
abject poverty that they live in, where the average income is about $4,500 a month, and the average lifespan in Pine Ridge for a male is under 50 years old.
But if they find
It's worse than
oil and
Biafra.
natural resources and everything,
Oh yeah, then they'll screw them good,
and they'll go right through your property.
and they'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they can, and because we empower this, because we sit back, because we're busy raising our families, because we're busy working 2 jobs to afford the stuff that's so expensive that shouldn't be, because we're busy, and then they slip in there. And they do it. No, they do.
Yeah.
And we have got to get ourselves in a position where we are on the school boards, where we are out there, where we're the ones that are determining this, and not these kooks that are bringing in these far-right, crazy notions that are not good for the country and not good for the people. They're only good because they believe it's some religious crusade that they're on. And you know, every religious crusade that I know didn't end well. History doesn't show that that ends well. And you know what? And then we're going to talk about other things. But if you don't like hearing what I'm saying, because it upsets you that we have 17 million children that are hungry every night in the U.S., because 400,000 kids are in foster care, and if you voted for abortion or support that, are you going to adopt one? Because if you're not, shut the F up, okay? We're going to add to that. It's going to triple. They anticipate that that number will triple, okay? And so anyway, if you don't like what I'm saying and you want to change these things and you want your right to abortion back, especially women, you want your health care to be your choice between you and your God and not between somebody else's and theirs, then you need to vote blue, and we need to vote like it's never happened before. Our life depends on it, and it does. It does. And if you don't like what I'm saying because you just don't like it, you think I'm some liberal bitch, well, you know what? I am speaking truth to power, and I don't give a damn what you think. You are wrong, you are vile, and I don't care, okay? I can make you mad, and I don't care. I don't care if you're mad at me for what I'm saying because it's the truth. I don't care. The truth can hurt. We have been taken advantage of and lied to and mistreated, and you who believe in these people are a victim. You are a victim. You are not a supporter. You're a victim of their ruse and their lies and their cheating. So just vote for yourself. Stop and think. You don't have to tell your friends if they're all red and you're in a red state who you voted for. You don't have to tell your husband or your wife. You don't have to tell your pastor. It's none of their damn business. You can go in there and vote for the things that will support you and your children and the things that you believe in, and you don't have to tell them. Just don't tell them. Just vote for yourself. Vote for your children. Vote for our future. Vote for your rights. Vote blue.
That's right, Rhonda. You know, here on the WTF show, Rhonda has just given everybody an eye-opener, I would call it. That was great, Rhonda. I like listening to some of your stuff because you bring out some of the best, dialogue ever, especially when there's these kind of things going on. And when you go vote blue, get rid of the Republicans, you wonder, okay, so they all come out and say, oh, you're going to really love this, blah, blah, blah. The Catholic Church came out, oh, I'm so happy, praise God. What's with all this stuff? But they have no thoughts of what's going to happen when they allow all these children to be born.
Yeah.
Who's taking care of them?
And the people that are going to die
and
in
women
childbirth.
dying,
And
children dying, and they're going to have all of this.
And it's just and all the other things. Like say you're in this army and you are a citizen of Colorado and you are a woman and you're in the U.S. Army and you're stationed now in Missouri and you get pregnant. Now, what are you going to do? You can't put a pregnant woman there. It's going to really hinder our armed forces. I mean, if they wanted to be pregnant, fine. But if it was a rape or they didn't want to be pregnant, it wasn't the right time for them, and something happened and it just they needed to. What are they going to do? Are they subject to Colorado law or are they subject to Missouri law? Or Mississippi law?
See, that's the
you
thing.
know, and if my daughter lives here from a red state and moves back home, because of a situation, then what are they going to do? Well, she was born in Colorado, raised in Colorado. She has bank accounts in Colorado. You know, she's a Coloradoan, and you know, it's, or I help somebody's friend. You know, they're going to come and get me from Colorado and drag me back to Texas, because that's the only way I'd go to Texas. You have to drag me there
and put you in court.
Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous.
And charge you.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean,
Rhonda Shea, you've been charged with the one count
and
of aborting your child.
Yeah.
How do you plead?
Yeah, well, anyway, I feel guilty. If you ever met my children, you would have wished I did it twice more.
That was wrong on 15 levels, Ron. Take that back.
I'm not taking. I'm just kidding. But what I am saying is that it's unenforceable. It's unenforceable that women would go to jail, that doctors would go to jail, that people would cross straight lines, and they're going to go back and forth and stop that, and you know, all of that stuff. It's ridiculous, and it's taking away our rights.
Even the way it sounds in the court of law.
It's ridiculous.
Think of how that will be presented. Well, Miss Rhonda Shea, we have reason to believe that we caught you over at the abortion clinic that has been shut down, but you were trying to have an illegal abortion.
Yeah, I mean, it's
How
ridiculous.
stupid does that sound?
It's stupid.
Like, what the hell is wrong with this? Stepping back, like you say,
And then
50 years.
And they got bounty hunting on women now. It's bounty hunting. That's what it is on regular law-abiding women who want to or need health care. And we're not talking, most abortions are not by women who are using it as birth control. That's a very small percentage. Most are by health issues.
Health issues almost completely.
Yeah, and it's because nobody in their right mind would abort a child, especially a late-term abortion.
That's right.
If just because, you know, late-term, I decided I don't want a baby and I'm 9.5 months pregnant. That doesn't happen. That's bullshit. It's another thing that's
bullshit.
Been fed to you,
Yeah.
like the blue states are the criminal ones, and like the blue states don't have any money, and like, you know, it's, you know, I think in some ways it's jealousy because the Rust Belt and these poor states are really poor, and their way of life is gone because of corporate farms and things like that, and so they're living in communities that are now making no money, and they're the highest meth communities in the world, and they sit back and they see all these people in the city doing well, and they're jealous of it. Well, you know what? You can move. You could have stayed in school past 8th grade and moved.
You know what this reminds me of is when they send out ICE to these factories, you know, over there at the, you know, where they're taking care of all the turkeys and processing them, and they rate them for people who are working.
Oh, yeah.
All those Mexicans, they come here and they just take all our resources and they never work.
Oh, yeah.
But they go raid the place.
And it's all Mexicans working.
And they're working.
Yeah, I know.
What the hell? Wait,
and now
find out they've got abortions. We got to wait.
And now they have no workers. You know,
I don't get it, do you?
You know, but I do think women can do a couple of things. And I think one thing is that every woman and girl in this country should take a knee when the anthem is played until we have the same rights.
Take a knee on my neck.
Yeah, well, no, but take a knee.
Oh, because there was that one where if the women start taking a knee on me,